look.
Ecclesiastes says there is a time for every matter under heaven, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time for mourning and a time for joy. Today these emotions will surely find a place together in our hearts as we are gathered to say goodbye to Lois Elliott. She would not want this to be a depressing affair. For if it is, I fear that Lois will find a way to speak to us and make it right. So let us give thanks and joy for her life and for all the blessings we received through our time with her. Let us remember the promises of God for her and for us, and commit her into the hands of the loving God in whom she believed and put her trust. She has found her place in the kingdom of heaven and is now in the company of the saints in light. Thanks be to God. Amen. Let us pray.
O God, we seek you first before all else in this place today, to center ourselves, to bring focus, to remind ourselves of where we are grounded. And you are the one who created us. And you are the one who is present with us now as we gather as your people. We ask your Spirit to be with us as we celebrate the life of Lois, and as we gather around as the communities to support Jim and the children and the whole family, for there are many. And we come to celebrate her life, to remember her joy and gift and laughter and smile and love. And as we do that, there will be tears to shed, for grief is close at hand. And our grief is deep, because our love is deep. So we ask you to be with us in this time to celebrate and to remember, and to comfort each one who mourns and remembers, and to be with us as we celebrate. God, we give you thanks, especially today, for the life of Lois Elliott, and the gift she was to so many. And we thank you for the time that we had to know and to be with her, and what she gave to each of us. So be now present through your Spirit. It is in Christ's name, God, in your name, that we pray. Amen.
Please join me now as we sing Amazing Grace.
Let us hear first our words from the Old Testament from Isaiah. Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint, and to him who has no might, he increases strength. Even youth shall faint and be weary, and young men shall fall exhausted. But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. And our gospel reading from Matthew. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. They began to speak and taught them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven." This is God's word. We give thanks.
These words from Isaiah and Matthew speak beautifully to Lois's life and spirit, and to the faith in which she found much comfort and strength. Isaiah spoke the words of the strength of an eagle's wings that lift it high above the earth, the strength necessary to run without becoming weary, and the strength to walk without becoming faint. He spoke that beautiful imagery to people who were facing difficult days ahead, and they needed a strength beyond their own, both physically and spiritually. That was the strength that Jim and Lois and their family called upon to help them to face her journey home. When I visited with Lois after her diagnosis, I was reminded of Dylan Thomas's poem, "Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light." Lois did not want to go peacefully. She wanted to muster the strength to fight to stay here with her loved ones and continue to make a difference. So she didn't want to go gently, but at the same time, she trusted in the one who brought her into this world and was willing to give herself to the one who prepared a place for her in the world to come. Her spirit now soars in heavenly places, and her love continues on in the hearts of all those whom she has touched with her life. And this is witness to what ways, all the wonderful, magnificent ways that Lois touched each and every one of us here and so many who weren't able to be here. Lois knew she was blessed. She also knew the higher calling of being a blessing to others in her clown ministry and in other ways. In Galilee, Jesus went up the mountain and taught what we call the Beatitudes to reveal fully how we can enjoy the peace of heaven by knowing the heart of God. The Beatitudes teach us how to become more like God, how to reflect the goodness and beauty and truth in the heart of God, in the heart of Jesus. When Jesus spoke to the people that day, let us imagine him looking out over the crowd. Maybe there were people in it he had known since he was a boy. Maybe he recognized a mother whose son had been murdered by Roman soldiers. She was mourning, but he knew that in the kingdom of God, she would receive the comfort she needed. Maybe he saw some helpless people, some people who were always getting trampled on and were afraid to stand up for their own rights. They were the meek, and too often in this world, they get excluded from the positions of power. You see these people, Jesus said, they will inherit the earth. Them, not the politicians or the dictators or the Romans, but the meek. And so it goes on as Jesus looks around. Those who are pure in heart, who long for God's kingdom above all else. Those who are poor in spirit, who fall short of what they should be and know it, and who cry out to God for forgiveness and strength to do better. Those who are merciful to others, not angry and judgmental. All these and many more were represented in the crowd that day and are probably represented in our crowd today. They all have a longing of some kind in their heart. One day, Jesus is saying, that longing will be fulfilled. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Jesus welcomes us all, which was very important to Lois, and assures us that whatever the deepest longings of our hearts, they will be fulfilled in the coming of the kingdom of God, where we will find the blessing that we long for. So today we rejoice because Lois is a member of this company of the blessed. If Jesus had met Lois, he probably would have included in the Sermon on the Mount, "Blessed are those who laugh, for they will make the world more loving." Lois's calling as a clown did that. She made the world a more loving place. God was very present in the relationships that Lois shared, and very much in the love that she showered upon you, in the knowledge that she was proud of you and loved you. God was present in bringing Jim and Lois together and in raising their children and grandchildren. Within the Christian tradition and others, we look upon death as not so much a moving on, but rather a moving more deeply into the reality of God. We glimpse the holy and the sacred in the midst of life, but as the author of Hebrews notes, while we see in a mirror dimly in the midst of this life, we will ultimately know as we are fully known. Lois was fully known and fully loved by God in this life. She has moved into that fuller awareness of that love that held her from the beginning of her life, sustained her here through the beauty of her days, and will not leave her in the midst of death, but continues to abide with her. We do not see her anymore, but we recognize her presence in the stories that we tell, the beauty of those experiences that she loved and loved to share with others, and in those places where laughter is blessed and the world is made a bit more loving because of it. Thanks be to God. Amen.
Hi. Hi, my name is Steve, and my mother was a clown. You know, few experiences can sear into a young person's memory banks, like seeing their mother walk into the living room or church, or pull into the school parking lot to pick you up, looking like this. But the truth is, all of us, well, most of us, found this incredibly inspiring and amusing, because Mom's most notable clowning was clowning in hospitals and helping people in need. And also because we saw that Mom loved it so much, and we saw how much people loved Mom as a clown. But that didn't stop us from giving her a hard time, and me in particular, sorry. For example, I invented the family's official response when Mom came bounding in as Vincent Van Gogh or Dr. Dodd or some other character, so we'll do it for you now. Family, clown salute. Mom loved a good joke, even when it was at her expense, but she made it clear that she wanted to be remembered today as a clown. And she asked that in doing that, I share a clown prayer that was dear to her. It's in your bulletin, and I'll share a part of it, so please join me. Please help me to create more laughter than tears, dispense more happiness than gloom, spread more cheer than despair. Never let me grow so big that I will fail to see the wonder in the eyes of a child, or the twinkle in the eyes of the aged. Never let me forget that I am a clown, that my work is to cheer people up, to make them happy, make them laugh, make them momentarily forget all the unpleasant things in their lives. As I've thought about that clown prayer over the past few weeks, I've come to realize that Mom wasn't so much a clown as the type of person who would become a clown. In fact, she didn't become a clown until she reached middle age. Mom was engaged in the world, including the community here at the Beatitudes. She was thoughtful to others. She liked to laugh. She liked to make others laugh. She was super smart. She was incredibly creative. And she had a flair for the dramatic, which she mainly used for good. So, with that in mind, I think that Mom would want two things today. First, for there to be no dairy products of any kind in the refreshments. Some of you heard that. And second, for there to be more laughter than tears today. So let's do our best. Thank you. I'm here all afternoon. Mom was born into Topeka, Kansas, to Helen Force, a school teacher, and George Force, a carpenter who later ran a postal route. She had a big sister, our dear Aunt Martha. Kansas was always home base for Mom. If you spent any time at all with her, she would say, "You just can't get a good tomato any place but Kansas." Heard it? She would say it when I passed her a bottle of ketchup. After graduating from Topeka High School, Mom headed to the College of Emporia in Emporia, Kansas. In her second year there, she took up with a freshman named Jim Elliott, a preacher's kid from Salina, and we all know about preacher's kids. They were both in the college choir, and on a trip performing at churches as far away as Colorado, Lois and Jim wound up sitting together on the bus an awful lot. According to my dad, Mom was an elegant older woman of 19. She was pretty, she liked the way he looked. She was sitting right next to him on that bus, and hijinks ensued. Mom said she told her roommate, "Jim Elliott is a nice guy, but I bet he's adult age." And she said that a few times. But she wound up marrying him and having 5 kids with him, so something must have worked. And Mom and Dad were married for 63 years and 1 day. And that's something something to celebrate. They transferred together to Kansas State College, and they got married after Mom graduated. She began teaching elementary school to support Dad as he finished his degree. Then they headed for Dad's first engineering job in Gary, Indiana. And in their years there, Kathy and then Brian joined the family. Mom taught school during that time, miraculously. She kept up with everything. And they used the money from that job as their down payment on their home in Phoenix. After a brief move to Cleveland, where I came along, they headed to the Valley, and after several more years, Karen and Kristen joined our version of the Brady Bunch. It was no small task to parent 5 kids with a wide range of ages and personalities and interests. My father traveled a lot for business, and these were often really long trips to places like Japan. That left Mom as ringmaster to a gaggle of kids at various stages of development. But she found ways to make every one of us feel like we had her undivided attention. Kathy remembers Mom taking her on holiday trips to get from Gary to Chicago and Marshall Fields to see Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny, and then they'd go to lunch at a fancy tea room. Brian remembers the time he talked Mom into riding on the back of an all-terrain vehicle down our street, and then he popped a wheelie. And Brian says his nipple is still bruised from that experience. Mom was a Republican precinct committee woman in the late 1970s. Yes, Mom was a Republican at one time. Hang on for the link. Anyway, she took me along to meetings because I was interested in politics, and she introduced me to all our state representatives and the mayor of Phoenix. Karen remembers how Mom took us on trips to the Fifth Avenue shops in Scottsdale when Dad was away on business. She'd stake us to a few bucks, and we could buy all kinds of magical junk and spend hours there. It was wonderful. Kristen remembers Mom pulling off a surprise and very elaborate Sweet 16 party for her friends from Drama Club. I think all of that and more happened because, as the clown prayer says, Mom never failed to see the wonder in the eyes of a child. She threw magnificent Christmases with thoughtful gifts. I'm sure yours were great. Ours were better. She made all our favorite cookies, and it just was no small task for so many kids to please. She even gave us presents for Valentine's Day. She organized incredibly creative birthday parties for all of us on our patio for large numbers of friends. There was a Candyland party with candy all over our dirt yard. There was a cowboy party for me, a pirate party. I like remembers my parties. And for me, the highlight was always Mom making poor Kathy stick her head through a bed sheet, and my friends and I would pelt her with wet sponges. So, it's called good, cheap entertainment, Chris. Mom can make any birthday cake you want. She made fancy butterflies for Kathy and Karen. She made a Cookie Monster cake. There's a picture in the back for Kristen. I remember her making a whale for Brian and me that looked just like the one from Pinocchio. She continued going all out for birthdays even when we became adults. When Brian turned 30, for example, Mom gave him a burlap sack filled with 3,000 pennies. You can do the math. Mom was also a kid at heart. She got into the act when as teenagers we would TP people's houses. And for all of you whose houses we TP'd, you can blame Mom. She sometimes even drove the getaway car and bought the toilet paper. And when she was working in the Washington School District, she would get her school district directory out, and Kristen and her friends would target their teachers, and Karen too. And all the deserving teachers would get TP'd, all courtesy of my mother, who did not wind up doing hard time. One time when my dad was away on business, someone at the dinner table, probably Brian, flicked a spoonful of pudding at somebody and hit him in the face. And so we all thought we were in trouble. But Mom didn't scold us. She started machine gunning pudding at us like the bionic woman. You know that guy in the Matrix? Anyway, we had this huge pudding fight all over the kitchen. Dad wasn't there. So we laughed hysterically. We cleaned the walls, the floor, and ourselves, and we agreed that we would never, ever tell Dad what happened. But Kristen did. We were longtime members of Faith United Methodist Church, and it's great to see so many people from Faith here today. Later, Mom and Dad attended the Church of the Beatitudes, and lately they attended First UCC Phoenix, where Mom took great pride in her church's diversity and its commitment to social justice. In a comment in Mom's obituary online, a fellow member at First UCC called Mom his church grandma, and I will tell you, she really got into being a church grandma. It made it sound like she had more than one church grandson, just so you know. At Faith, Mom took up clowning as a member of the Loyal Loonies, who performed during services and embarrassed their children. But no, they did wonderful things in a religious context. She became such a clown aficionado that she did professional gigs. She even bragged that she had to get clown insurance, because I guess that water squirting flower on your lapel could put somebody's eye out. So she was a pro's pro. Her greatest fame as a clown came from volunteering at St. Joseph's Hospital and Maricopa Medical Center. That included parachuting into extremely tense situations in the burn unit and emergency room. That work earned Mom a prominent feature story in the Arizona Republic with the headline, "A Dose of Humor." It's in the back if you want to see it. A picture with that article shows a 4-year-old girl beaming up at Mom in her clown getup. But Mom told me she always focused on the adults when she did her visits to the hospital. She said, "It's really easy to make a kid laugh. It's harder to make an adult laugh, and my job was always to make an adult feel like a child." Mom loved sewing, and she was really, really good at it. She sewed her own wedding dress. She sewed the flower girl dresses at her children's weddings. I never bought a pair of pajamas, and I don't think any male in our family ever has. They've all come courtesy of Mom. Mom was extremely interested in theater. In addition to supporting us kids who participated in Phoenix Children's Theater, Mom got so involved that she became the group's education director and put on summer programs. She even tried her hand at acting. She won a part in a one-act play with TheaterWorks. She was very good. She also enjoyed performing in public as a member of the Bodacious Babes, the Red Hats. Thank you, Red Hats, in the house for supporting Mom. Mom even had an off-Broadway moment in New York City, and I was lucky enough to see it. When she visited me there in the early 90s, we went to a comedy that staged a pretend game show. And as part of it, they called up contestants to be, members of the audience to be contestants. And they had to do ridiculous things like singing with earphones on so they could only hear the music, and doing ridiculous dramatic readings. And Mom was all in. And by the end of that performance, several hundred people in a theater in New York City were chanting, "Lois, Lois, Lois." Anyway, she'd love the crowd here today, by the way. And occasionally, well, maybe more than occasionally, Mom would offer a little drama for the sake of creating drama. She raged against the dying of the light, but she also could rage against the soup. Mom, a lot of this was for the benefit of her children. She loved watching the Diamondbacks, but sometimes she couldn't do it without saying, "You know, that Paul Goldschmidt's just not very likable." And one time she went to a humor conference in San Francisco, so I asked, "Hey Mom, how was the humor conference in San Francisco?" "So depressing." But that was Mom, and I wouldn't have traded her for any other mom. Mom reveled in being a grandmother and a great-grandmother. First as Gram to Kathy's kids, and then as Coco to the rest. According to Karen, the name Coco came from her telling her son Taylor that Mom was cuckoo. And truth is a defense against libel. No Christmas went by without each grandchild and great-grandchild getting an ornament from Coco. She had the grands and greats over every year to decorate Christmas cookies. She took each of Karen's daughters on their first trips to Disneyland, and probably some others too. In the tribute we're going to show at the very end of this service, and please note that's a change in the order that the video tribute will be at the very end. I'm struck by Mom's wide grin every time she's with a grandchild and a great-grandchild. She just loved it, and she was very, very, very good at it. Back when she was very little, my niece Brittany offered a great assessment of Mom as a grandparent and as a person. When Mom was making the flower girl dresses for our wedding, Brittany couldn't understand why Coco couldn't make the shoes. So Brittany said, she was about 4 at the time, Coco can do lots of things. She cooks, she sews, she's a clown. Anyway, that pretty much sums up Mom. In fact, Mom could do so many things that there's simply no way to say everything I'd like to say about my mother today. Such as her making the best potato salad this side of heaven. Kathy would kill me if I didn't say that. Our whole family is eager to talk with you afterwards and to hear your stories about Mom, and believe me, we have lots of stories in reserve for you. When this day arrives for each of us, I hope we are all as fortunate as my mother, and that is to have so many wonderful people come together and celebrate the following. She's created more laughter than tears. She dispensed more happiness than gloom. She spread more cheer than despair, and she never forgot that she was a clown.
Please join with me now as we sing, "It Is Well With My Soul."
Like a river
to Almighty God. Will you pray with me? Lord of all mercies and God of all comfort, the last words of your Son Jesus were, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. This day we commit and entrust our loved one Lois to your care, and we commit her family to the compassionate care of love's embrace. Although we are reluctant to let her go, we commit her into your everlasting arms, knowing the life of her soul will last beyond her departure in the lives of all who knew her. Her spirit will look out of others' eyes, and her voice will speak to us in the familiar things she touched. Draw us ever closer to you, gracious God, that we may know ourselves to be nearer to Lois and all of our loved ones who are now with you. We thank you that she is at peace. She walks among green pastures and beside the still waters of your paradise. She is among that great company of the saints in light, and we release her now to the next part of her spiritual journey as she walks hand in hand with our Creator, with all those who have gone before her lighting the way. And now the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make Love's face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace, both now and forevermore. Amen.
This concludes the service. You are invited to stay after for refreshments and to continue to celebrate Lois and tell your stories about her to family and friends.